Okay, we're continuing now in the book of Deuteronomy. We saw in the last video Moses introduces the book with words of rebuke for major incidents of failing. And in the second part, she covers our understanding of our relationship to God and to the giving of the Torah. He reviews the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, and then how we're supposed to understand the commandments and what they do for us as a nation. Now Parshas 3, 4, 5, and 6. These next four Parshas, he's going to talk about the land of Israel. Because as you recall, he's not going to be allowed to take us into the land, and therefore it's very important he gives us an orientation to the land we're about to enter. He opens by focusing on the concept of the land of Israel. He tells us it's going to be a land of blessing, of prosperity, if we keep the commandments, if we observe them carefully, even the small things that we wouldn't necessarily put so much attention to, but even the small things, they make a major difference when we live in the land. But we shouldn't think it's a given. Just because God is removing certain nations from the land, he's giving it to us, that doesn't mean we can just stay on the land without being mindful of our behavior, and we can be expelled as well. And he reviews the sin of the golden calf, that just 40 days after the giving of the Torah, we fell by building this idol at the bottom of the mountain when Moses had not appeared. So we can fail dramatically. And that's why the second paragraph of the Shema prayer is in this part of the third concept, because in that second paragraph, we talk about the concept of the land of Israel, because it says, if we keep the commandments, we observe them, and we love God, then there'll be rainfall, the land will be secure, we'll have our food, the animals will have their food, but if we don't, we can get expelled from the land of Israel. So we have to clarify that to ourselves twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, that it's tentative being in the land in terms of our relationship with the Almighty. Parsha number 4, he then focuses on the influences of living in the land. He starts by saying that there'll be increased desires, because we're moving away from the spiritual incubator of the desert and moving into a physical land will be increased appetites for meat. As an example, there'll be missionaries and idolaters and false prophets, and we have to be aware of these people are going to try to take us away from a relationship to God. We're given the commandment to build a temple at a certain point in our history. We'll talk about that also in later videos. And we also cover the major festivals, because the purpose of the festivals, namely Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, are to anchor us every year, 3 times a year, in terms of our national identity and the major events that transformed us as a people. So that's covered in the 4th Parsha. Then in Parsha number 5, we have the administration of the land. We're going to have judges and police and kings and prophets. We'll have the priests and the Levites, all the different positions of leadership in the land. And then Parsha number 6 is the social code. In this Parsha, I want to point out we have 74 commandments. Now remember, there are 613 commandments in the entire Torah, so a very large percentage are right here in this Parsha, Parsha number 6. And namely, we're meant to be a morally enlightened nation, how we're supposed to be responsible for one another. For example, someone loses an object, it's not finders, keepers, losers, weepers, but rather someone has to go to a very great extent to try to return a lost object, to the point that there's another commandment in the Torah besides returning lost objects, that you can't turn your eyes away when you see a lost object. You have to take responsibility. You have to build a parapet on your roof so someone shouldn't fall. A lot of commandments that focus primarily on how we're supposed to deal with one another. Now I'm speaking in generalities, and there's a lot more in each of these parshas, but this will give you an orientation on understanding what's covered in these parshas that get us focused on understanding and appreciating our life that's going to be in the land of Israel. Okay, let's do a little review, and here we go. 3, 4, 5, and 6 focuses on the land of Israel. 3 is the concept. It's a land meant to be filled with blessing, but it's not a given. Moses reviews the sin of the golden calf, and that's why we have the second paragraph of the Shema that talks about our security in the land being contingent on our observance of the commandments. Then 4 is the influences. We're going to have increased desires for meat. Missionaries, we have to be aware of idolaters, false prophets. We're going to build a temple as a center of influence for the nation, and we're going to have the major festivals. 5 is the administration of the land. We're going to have judges and police and kings and prophets and priests and the Levites. And 6 is a social code. We have 74 commandments that primarily deal with man-to-man, man-to-woman relationships.